Story 1. Not me, but my brother. Driving under the influence at 19, kicked out of college, drug use, living with our parents until almost 30. 40 now, with a wife and child, making high six figures, running a company, and living in a big house. I am no longer the favorite child. Proud of him. Story 2. A close to 2-month stay in the hospital made me open my eyes and let go of all my friends. I have started from scratch. Life is a bit boring now, but it was not meant to feel like a movie anyway. Story 3. Found a therapist. Stopped blaming others or circumstances for my problems. Stopped using my depression, anxiety, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as an excuse to avoid responsibility or feel sorry for myself. This mindset shift allowed me to go back to college, start building a career, start dating with intention, be a better parent, and get into shape. All the things I said I couldn't do before because I was born poor, my mental health made it difficult, someone hurt me, or any other excuse I could think of to avoid accountability. Story 4. At 33, a long-term relationship ended and a death in the family made me rethink some things. Shortly after, at 34, a very high-paying career of 11 years came to an end. I converted my Toyota 4Runner into a camper, rented out my house, and started driving. I covered 45,000 miles of aimless wandering through 27 United States and 3 Canadian provinces. I saw family, saw friends, and made new friends. I flew to Hawaii twice, flew to Japan twice, and flew to Mexico. I camped in different climates all over the place. Eventually, I started feeling like I had seen it all and decided that I really enjoyed Japan, which felt like a different planet. I enrolled to study Japanese in Tokyo for a year and told my renter he could stay longer. I flew out at the beginning of 2024, stopping along the way to party in Las Vegas, to party in Los Angeles, and to celebrate New Year's Eve in Hawaii, all while carrying my entire life's worth of belongings in 3 bags. I studied Japanese for a year and now, at 37, I am gainfully employed making great money living in Tokyo. I speak enough Japanese to get by and try to improve a little every day. I have a girlfriend and an apartment. I sold my house at the end of last year and I definitely miss it sometimes, but I feel much freer this way. Life is short. While I love my friends back home dearly, I question why they still run the same rat race year after year. Go live your life instead. Life only gets better. Story 5. I left a long-term relationship that I thought I would be in for the rest of my life. He was not abusive, but he did and said some things that I just could not get over. I was unhappy and uncomfortable with our living situation, but he did not want to do anything about it. I knew deep down I wanted more for myself, so I found the courage to leave and live on my own, even if it meant living frugally. It has been almost 2 years now, and during that time I focused on myself. I stopped partying. I am working on finishing my degree, and I have had 2 promotions since then. It has not been easy. I have spent nights crying myself to sleep, but I am happier and living the life I want, not following someone else's life who is growing at a different pace than mine. Story 6. I decided that I was done listing all of the reasons I was stuck in place and started betting on myself. I was so scared of failure that I never tried anything, but my new plan is to take big swings at every opportunity. This led me to taking the law school admission test and applying to law schools I thought would surely reject me. Luckily, a few schools were willing to take a chance on a non-traditional law student with some low undergraduate grades from over a decade ago. I went to law school and found myself back in the same mindset. How am I going to compete with all of these students who are a decade younger? But I just stuck to the same philosophy. Maybe I would be last in my class, but I would give it my all. I was successful in law school as well, making it on the dean's list and landing a job at a large law firm. Now I wonder how I'm going to keep up with my new colleagues who are absolutely brilliant lawyers. But I just remember my mantra: take big swings at every opportunity and bet on myself. Story 7. In my late 20s, I moved 1,800 miles, experienced a psychotic break, and was subsequently diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1 with psychotic features. I had more hospitalizations and became sober during this time. I changed my career path from nonprofit office work to becoming a teacher. I became serious about love, relationships, and friendships, and I will be married on Saturday. I stopped searching for something outside to sustain me and began to sustain myself. I have been stable on medications without episodes or hospitalizations for 3 years now and take my overall health much more seriously instead of living in the fast lane. Story 8. Had 2 friends whom I thought would be there for me in thick and thin. Turned out I was wrong. I distanced myself from them and focused on myself, learning to appreciate the people very close to me. I became calm and lost most of my anxiety. I have a stable job that supports me and my wife, who cannot work due to chronic pain. We are extremely happy at the moment. Story 9. Not 29 to 30, but 30 now. I have lost over 100 kilograms in weight. Life wanted to take me down mentally, but I refused to fall. Story 10. I wouldn't say I changed completely, but just before my 30th birthday, I bought a bicycle. Then, on my 30th birthday, I decided to go for a ride on some local mountain bike trails. Since then, I have met many people, including my partner and fiancé. I got in better shape because riding bikes is fun. I volunteer frequently. I went from someone who mostly stayed at home and played with computers, occasionally going for walks and hikes, to developing a regular habit of exercising because it is enjoyable. I also significantly expanded my social circle. It was not my intention, but I am very happy and fortunate with how it all worked out. Story 11. Just bought the business I have worked at for 3 years. Revenue has been negative $200,000 per year or worse over those 3 years. I have been working more than 80 hours a week for 5 weeks straight to get this train back on track. Wish me luck. Story 12. My life was good when I turned 30, but I wasn't really happy. My job was boring and a dead-end career-wise, but at least it paid well. Programming was a lifelong hobby of mine. I started programming on my Commodore 64. I imagined what it would be like to be a real developer, so I decided to leave my old life behind. I moved to another city, putting 250 kilometers between me and my mother, which made me happy. I attended university again to study computer science. Studying is basically free in my country, with only a small fee of about €200 per semester. It was pretty hard because my parents only helped me with a very small amount of money, which barely covered my rent. I had to work 2 jobs alongside studying to buy food and other necessities. I also maintained a long-distance relationship with my girlfriend back home. Long story short, 20 years later, I am truly happy. I work in my dream job as a software developer, met a nice girl and married her, and I have new and old friends. Looking back, I can confidently say that this was the best decision I ever made, and I would do it again. Story 13. Started meditating and realized all my problems are caused by my internal negative thoughts. When you stop the internal negative thoughts, life becomes magical and beautiful. Story 14. I got a driving under the influence charge and realized I had a problem that needed to be addressed. I stopped partying and focused on taking care of myself. I am very happy with my quiet, simple life. It's a good thing I got my life together. Most of my friends from back then are living difficult lives. One is homeless and struggling with meth addiction. Another is sober for now but remains unemployed and lives with his mother. One friend is basically the same, married to someone in jail and still partying like she's in her 20s. That girl is perfectly happy living her life. The worst one is in jail awaiting trial for beating her roommate to death. Don't do drugs. They can ruin your life. Story 15. I was a bartender and sommelier. I made okay money and had a good time. My girlfriend became pregnant with twins. Responsibility hit me like a ton of bricks, and I wanted to be a good, involved dad. I got a sales job. I started making better money and working more family-friendly hours. Now my identity is Golf Dad who also works in sales. I like my life a lot better now. Story 16. I met an amazing woman who believed in me and was not afraid to tell me when I was being a fool. She helped me raise 2 children who were not hers and encouraged me to attend college. Without her, I would not have been able to do either of those things. Story 17. I moved to another country, left everything behind, changed careers, and started from scratch without knowing anyone. These last 8 years have been hard but fun. I have learned a lot about myself and my limits. I think I am a little calmer and happier with my simple life. Story 18. I moved to another city, got the dream job, met a girl in my department, and married her. Everything was pure accident or fate. If you had told me I would make it the day before I did, I would not have believed it, since I was not even trying to change my life. Story 19. Moved out of home and got away from family. It is still tough, you kind of go through mourning, but everything is better. Story 20. Decided to stop wallowing in my problems and started to tackle them one by one. I exaggerated them immensely and can understand how people have the energy for other people now. I am still an introvert, but I am not preoccupied with my own issues as much anymore. Story 21. I met my now wife at age 30. Then the pandemic destroyed my office job, and I got a blue-collar job where I make much more money with less stress. Story 22. After drinking alcoholically since age 12, I quit drinking 4 years ago at age 36. My life has vastly improved on paper, but one surprising aspect is that I basically stopped maturing at 12. I do not mean immature humor, but rather emotional maturity and qualities like responsibility, consideration for others, and patience. I started as a child and now I am like a teenager. I am hopeful that if I continue, I will be as mature as a 25-year-old around age 50. What a gift. Better late than never. Story 23. I was 36 on my dream vacation, camping on a tiny island with no plumbing or electricity. There was nothing to do all day but snorkel, scuba dive, kayak, and swim. I traveled solo and sat on a dock by candlelight in a glass jar, writing in a journal and watching lights from faraway cruise ships and shooting stars. During the whole 2 weeks on the island, I kept pinching myself for this wonderful experience. In the solitude of a place like that, being almost completely alone and snorkeling all day with just my thoughts, no internet or working phone, I realized how unhappy I was. My married sister and brother had started their families, and eventually my parents would die. I would be very alone. If I wanted to change that, I needed to look at my life and decide what I would do about it. Had I become the person I really wanted to be? What was most important to me? I made a very detailed plan with 5 goals and 2 to 3 months to establish new habits, working towards one goal at a time. Since then, I have gotten married, doubled my income, changed jobs, became extremely fit, started a business, traveled to 18 new countries, started new hobbies, bought a new home, and moved 90 miles away to a more urban area. Also, my dad died, which was crushing. My siblings had more children and grew more distant because they were busy being parents. I think it's important to constantly reflect on yourself and your life to see what things can be improved, because there is always something. Story 24. COVID-19 made me reevaluate everything. It changed my career path, work-life balance, and priorities regarding saving versus spending. I removed many superficial friends from my life and ultimately realized what I truly value versus what I was expected to value but did not actually benefit me. Story 25. In my 20s and 30s, I was in the armed forces, then in banking. After a significant mental breakdown, I became a shamanic healer. It is always interesting bumping into someone from my past life. Story 26. Magic mushrooms. I had been in therapy for years and had been trying several pharmaceuticals. I had severe post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms and uncontrollable anger and animosity toward everyone. The summer I turned 31, I met a therapist who was okay with me microdosing psilocybin mushrooms and seeing her once a week. I would dose and then talk to her. After about 3 months of that, I was a completely different person. I saw the world in a different way. I found my inner empathy. My diet and life habits changed. I discovered self-love and acceptance. I was able to let go of all my grudges. Because of psilocybin, I felt like I could marry my now wife and start a family. 15 years later, I am amazed at how happy I have become. Story 27. After repeated stays in psychiatric wards, more than 10 times, I found a church, went to school to earn a degree, worked a government job, and returned to school for another degree. I see a great psychiatrist and take medication regularly. Now, I am relatively stable. Prayer helps a lot. along with belief in myself that everything will be all right and that I can and will get better. It has been almost 3 years since I was last hospitalized. I recently took a college exam with 40 questions and got 5 wrong, scoring 87.5%. I am celebrating the small victories. I have bipolar disorder type 1, which is a serious mental illness. However, I am proof that it is possible to manage this condition, change your life, and succeed. Story 28. Quit my job and started using methamphetamine. Life could not be better right now. I just want to start a fight or something. Story 29. Moved to Italy at 35 and have never been happier. Wish I had done it sooner, but New York City is a difficult habit to break. Story 30. I turned 31 and realized I had not achieved much because I was stuck in a toxic relationship for most of my 20s and had become comfortable. I have since ended that relationship. I am now 39 with a master's degree, a house that I own, a 6-digit paying job, and a wonderful wife. Story 31. First, I went from skinny to very obese by age 35. Then, I became really into fitness and health and got into the best shape of my life by age 40. Story 32. At 33, I nearly had a cryptic pregnancy, and in less than a month, my husband and I had to get ready for the baby, learn the basic essentials, and completely change our lifestyles. We had fully put the possibility of kids behind us after having multiple miscarriages and almost 8 years without pregnancies. We were constant partiers, lived however we wanted, and had zero responsibilities except for making sure rent and bills were paid on time. His biggest hobby was open sea fishing, and mine was art. I sold random art pieces in various local shops. We had moved back to my hometown to try a nomadic lifestyle since my home state has many national parks and plenty of space. I landed a really good office job that made saving up much easier and gave a lot of paid time off. Then I found out I was pregnant, and all prior plans immediately stopped. Our main focus became ensuring our baby grew up in a safe and stable environment. My husband and I are now 35. I have a good position at work and have earned a few promotions. My husband just went back to work full-time. He worked less than 40 hours a month for the first year and a half after our baby was born so we would not need daycare. We both have careers, live in an okay neighborhood, and are building a good foundation for our lives. Retirement looks like a possibility in old age. We are now those parents who go on day trips out of town, have a regular walking path in the nearby park, attend brunch with friends, go on playdates, have bedtime routines, and constantly sing nursery songs. We used to get high and watch cult classics or disappear for a few days at a time. Now we put on alphabet songs, dance with our baby, or cuddle on the couch and relax to soft music while he falls asleep. This is not a negative change, just a complete 180-degree shift in life. Story 33. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor while living the ski bum lifestyle out west. I had a complete resection, moved back east, and started buying real estate. All is well, and I am enjoying the ride. Story 34. At 35, I was a miserable, overweight man. That summer, I accepted that I am transgender and started taking hormones the following spring. When I realized it was possible to like my own reflection, I became motivated to get in shape. Now, at 39, I am in the best shape of my life. Before, I would always try to minimize myself, blend in, and avoid attention. Now, I am becoming more comfortable with myself. I dress to make myself happy. I get to wake up, look in the mirror, and think, wow, that is actually me. Feeling my self-confidence grow in real time has been amazing. Story 35. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 40, a decade later than 30, but still, that was 2 years ago. I realized that all those petty things you get upset about are not really important. I decided to finally go to art school. I got into a great program and have never been happier or more proud of myself. It is never too late. Never. If you are alive, you can do whatever it is you want if you just try. Story 36. At 30, I badly broke my ankle while drunk, was handicapped and stuck in bed for 2 months, and fully realized I deserved it. This totally shifted my view of poor choices, risks, consequences, and most importantly, what satisfaction and enjoyment really are from a broader point of view. Story 37. My spouse died. I earned a college degree and moved out of state for my then dream job. I went from $14 per hour to $100,000 per year, so I consider that a complete change. I will be leaving that job soon, unfortunately. It looks like my 40s will hold more surprises. I do not know if they will be good or bad yet. Story 38. Just before turning 30, I became almost 3 years sober. It is the best decision I have ever made. At age 29, I was diagnosed with an unruptured brain aneurysm that was found accidentally and treated with a stent. I feel much more grateful and present, and I am also slightly frightened by how precious life is and the time I have with the people I love. Story 39. COVID happened. The shutdown took place a month after my 30th birthday. I came down with the third wave 2 months after returning to work after furlough, and I was sick for 11 days. I was very scared. It made me reconsider my life's purpose, what gave me joy, and what I wanted my life to look like. I ended a long-term relationship, found new friends, went back to school to get my bachelor's degree, had a few relationships that were life lessons, went through intensive trauma therapy, was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and changed jobs a few times. I just landed a new full-time job, and it is promising. Life is still a work in progress, but 5 years after COVID, my life has changed dramatically and I am much happier. Story 40. Ended my marriage, went back to school, left a desk job to become an emergency medical technician, met someone new from another country, traveled all over, got married in Las Vegas, and received a lot of therapy. Now I am happier and healthier than ever, 10 years into my emergency medical services career. I cannot believe I was ever satisfied with my old life. Take chances and invite diversion. Story 41. I hit an all-time low. I was depressed, severely overweight, and unhappy with my life and who I had become. I talked to a friend who convinced me to go to my doctor and ask for depression and anxiety medication suggestions. Since then, I have been able to pull myself out of a spiral and built the confidence to leave my toxic relationship. I slowly developed new routines, habits, self-esteem, and a whole new personal life. I finally had the courage and humility to go to therapy, the final piece of the puzzle. I am now the healthiest and happiest I have ever been in my life, both physically and mentally. I have since gradually stopped taking the medication and maintained my routines. If I had listened to the harmful messages I was continuously told growing up to suck it up and be a man, I do not know if I would be here today. Ask for help and never give up on yourself. Story 42. I stopped seeing my friends. They are between 35 and 45 and still party and do drugs. I just do sports and focus on money for now. I am 32 now. I used to party from the age of 20 to 30. It is not in my interests anymore. I have changed a lot in the last 2 years and I keep changing. Somehow my friends do not change, which I dislike. I do not want to see them either. I like to be all on my own for now. Story 43. As a 29-year-old with a pregnant wife, I am assuming my life is going to drastically change very soon. It is already happening as my gaming room and man cave has become a nursery. So a child is my answer. Story 44. Got married and my wife became pregnant with twins. So I had to stop wasting time with my gig delivery jobs and get a real job. Story 45. Got a master's degree, built a career, got married, had 2 children, and bought a house. It is hard as hell but very fulfilling. Story 46. At 32, everyone was still going to raves, using too many drugs, and then people started dying. I had already wanted a clean lifestyle, so I removed the partiers and replaced them with outdoor pursuits and outdoor enthusiasts. I found inner peace by waking up at 4 a.m. instead of going to bed at 4 a.m. Yes, the Dawn Patrol. Story 47. Not 30, but in the past few years, I have changed a lot. I decided to follow my own path, to live in a way that feels right to me, and to do what makes me happy. New opportunities started appearing as soon as I freed my mind from the belief that things were limited. It is only our mind that creates limitations. Taking my life into my own hands meant creating my own experience instead of being limited by other people's beliefs and perspectives. Nobody else's decision is automatically the right one for us. We need to choose what is aligned with our soul and feelings. Story 48. I had a mental breakdown after years of masking undiagnosed mental illness and multiple traumas throughout my life. Then I was laid off while on medical leave. Now my life has done a complete turnaround, and I have no traditional career. I am writing and creating while spending most of my time recovering from the burnout that caused my mental breakdown. Story 49. Parted ways with a long on-off relationship that was toxic. Moved 2,000 miles from home. Married a wholesome human being and just had our first child. Changed everything I could and improved my life greatly. I am looking forward to my 40s. Story 50. Decided to stop binge drinking and drug use. Started exercising and eating healthier. Everything since then has started to fall into place for the better. More contentment at work. Better interactions with friends and family. I have learned to be content. Story 51. I am 35 years old. I was addicted to very hard drugs, crack cocaine and heroin, from my early 20s, running around the city of Toronto in a destructive way. I have been sober since November 2024, and I am in a healthy relationship with an amazing, sweet, and very caring man. I also have my own place in the city with a new puppy named Melvin. I will be going back to school in September to study to become an addiction worker and mental health worker. Story 52. Well, story time. Used to be a drunk man whore in the military, swapped careers in my 30s, and now I am a simple person who drinks tea before work, walks his dogs, and just enjoys the simple things in life. More details below. Sorry for the near rambling post. I spent my adult life between 2003 and 2015 in the military. During that time, I became a raging drunk, a supreme narcissist, and a self-proclaimed man whore, all while serving the country. My career between 2003 and 2017 was in aircraft maintenance and electrician work. After I got out, I attempted to continue that trend, but ultimately ended up back in the United States in 2017 so that a variety of medical issues could be addressed. Thankfully, I did because I had 2 strokes right afterwards in my early 30s. I ended up on disability and just refused to work. I attempted to go to school, but still being a raging drunk and man whore, I never really accomplished much. The same was true with relationships and practically everything. It was about this time that it became obvious that things needed to change, which was perfect timing for the 2 driving under the influence citations I got back to back. I started to wake up from that bad dream around 2022. I worked on my mental health first, and I am just now starting to work on my physical health. Of course, through the years, I made some small efforts, but 2022 to 2023 is when I started to take it seriously. So, from 2023 to 2025, I found some time to really come back to center emotionally and mentally. Now, I have the confidence and trust in myself to start on the physical work and to start really being someone. In the military, it is easy to get lost in the job or career, especially when drowning your miseries in alcohol. But it is harder as a civilian and during the transition, at least for me. I had and have no friends near me. My family is more than 3,000 miles away by choice, and everyone around me comes across as the opposite of genuine. Honestly, it is hard to care sometimes. Just work a job to make money. And then what? I have traveled the world multiple times over, had more sex and partying than probably 90% of the world. I have seen and done things that nobody would believe, but it is more than just, what now? It is more like, how do you proceed from that? That lifestyle might sound somewhat good to a 21-year-old, at least on paper, but it is very precarious even at my young age of 40. However, I have found a career that I like in accounting, and I even switched my degree plan around to it. I am working on building more positive relationships with everyone around me and actively getting involved with hobbies and interests. Probably the next biggest step is to start doing more for others, practically, through volunteering my time. To give a real comparison to the life I have lived and now, aside from this paragraph, I go to work and will start riding a bike to work tomorrow. I go home, walk my dogs, cook and eat dinner, take care of the house and cut the grass. I might smoke a bit of marijuana, but I only drink when going out maybe twice a month and try to be in bed by 10. I even wake up in the morning, work out, take a dog out for a walk, and drink tea before leaving for work. It is a perfectly simple bachelor lifestyle. I do not even attempt to pursue women anymore. So yeah, this post probably needs a summary, which is at the top. Hopefully you read that before reading this. Story 53. I went back to school at 30, graduated at 35, and got a job in my industry. I progressed from customer service to Amazon Web Services infrastructure and architect work. Story 54. Quit a seasonal lifestyle. I loved skiing and climbing. I packed what I could fit into my Toyota Highlander and moved to wine country to find full-time work making wine. I spent 2 years looking for full-time work to no avail. I ended up spinning my wheels in seasonal production jobs. I learned a lot, but it was a dead end. During this period, I spent a lot of time blaming others and circumstances. I took a job in a tasting room that I didn't like at first but learned to love. I got better at selling wine. I made a plan to go to graduate school for winemaking, which required 4 years of prerequisites. I focused my life on those classes, earned straight A's for the first time, and was accepted into my top choice graduate program. I graduated a couple of years ago, earned a scholarship to work in France, and returned to wine country with a full-time job doing exactly what I moved to California to do, making wine. Took 8 years to get here, but I am grateful for the journey. Story 55. Therapy. Turns out I am the problem, but not in the ways I thought. I am not too much, not too emotional, not broken, and not beyond help. However, I do have toxic thoughts and behaviors because of toxic beliefs instilled in me. It is my responsibility to face them and change them. The average person probably would not see me as a bad person. I have always tried my best and tried to be kind to others. At the same time, being a chronic people pleaser is actually quite toxic for both yourself and those around you. Now, in my 30s, I have changed careers, left a marriage, stood up to my family, and I might move to the other side of the country next year. Story 56. Almost married an absolutely awful person out of fear of being single after 30. Being single after 30 is not the worst. I need to be more patient with romance and life events in general, and be clearer about what I want. Story 57. Divorce, bankruptcy, mental collapse, sobriety, overcoming depression, moving from cold north to sunny south, total collapse, homelessness. Story 58. In 2022, at the age of 36, after Vladimir Putin announced mass mobilization following his failures in Ukraine, I quit my job of 12 years as a land surveyor and moved to Kyrgyzstan, where I studied PHP, a programming language, for a year. I have been working as a PHP developer for almost 2 full years now. I have zero regrets. Story 59. This question assumes life remains the same after 30. That is simply not true. Life is always changing. Even if you marry someone, your 20s relationship will look nothing like your 30s relationship. Chasing stasis is a way to be disappointed. Embrace the seasons of life. Story 60. I lived my whole life partying with no ambitions or goals. I worked at restaurants that just perpetuated my lifestyle. I showed up to work drunk one too many times, got fired, then received a driving under the influence charge a couple of weeks later. I decided to quit the restaurant industry for good, quit drinking, and stopped using drugs. I got a low-paying job at a hospital for a year until I was eligible for tuition reimbursement. Then, I went back to school for a 2-year program and now have a great job making decent money. The hospital paid for most of my education. Story 61. The biggest change was when I got out of the military and moved in with my then fiancé. We broke up, and I stayed in the same city, got an amazing job, now have an even more amazing wife, and can fund the majority of my hobbies and activities without worrying about breaking the bank. I had to go through some pretty bad downs before enjoying the rewards of the ups. Story 62. Started working as a graphic artist at this current workplace. Working here actually put me into debt. Story 63. Years of therapy, psychiatry, and intensive self-reflection and practice paid off. It all kind of crystallized a year ago. Something shifted in me, and everything I had been working at became second nature. Passion and joy started oozing out of me as I relatively effortlessly began being who and how I truly wanted to be. My ability to perceive, contemplate, and further develop myself also took off. It has been nice. I never thought I would be this happy. Story 64. I did not hate who I was, but I did not like it either. I was unmotivated and very lazy. I changed my eating habits and exercise routine and found new hobbies. These changes helped me become more proactive and excited about doing things. Now I am more productive in my life. It was a combination of small changes that created a big impact on how I viewed the world. I firmly believe that if you change your perspective, you change your reality. I am much happier now. Story 65. I discovered that the Church of Scientology was trying to become part of my life. I politely cut ties with everyone who was in that organization. I relocated from my home region. I moved on with my life. Story 66. Sobered up, got clean, recovered my marriage, and took ownership of the things I contributed to the breakdown of my relationships. It was a grind and, at times, extremely difficult and humbling, but I am happy, healthy, and I have my family back. Biggest win of my life. Story 67. I spent my life addicted to cocaine from 2013 to 2023. I came close to death several times, got out of shape, lost girlfriends, and ended up in the hospital due to an episode of delirium when I took lion's mane extract and could not sleep for 8 days. There is an online forum about people who have had similar experiences. In 2023, I finally broke free. I thought I would have to go to rehabilitation and did not think I could do it alone. But with supportive parents and friends, I got clean, got in shape, and changed my life. I still have a long way to go. It has only been a year and a half, but I feel pretty good. Story 68. I got out of the cycle of unhealthy relationships with toxic women and finally began rebuilding my credit after being irresponsible with my money when I was younger. I met the woman who is now my wife, and we just bought our hopefully forever home. All of this happened after the age of 32. I am 38 now. Story 69. I stopped playing the victim. My dad wasn't very nice all the time when I was growing up, and I used that as an excuse to stay down. He made jokes that I was stupid, and I feel like sometimes I got hit for trivial things because he was unhappy with his own life. I moved out, and my dad admitted he regretted the way he treated my sister and me when we were growing up. He owned that he was an unpleasant person. I struggled with self-harm for many years because I had always felt worthless, like a loser. I got close to God and prayed about a lot of what I was going through. I put myself through dental assisting school and found a job. If you had told me at 23 that I would be where I am now, I probably wouldn't have believed you. I'm not a rich or well-off person, but I'm better off than where I was. The broken girl who thought she couldn't do anything is doing something. Story 70. I had barely worked as an engineer by the age of 32 in 2020, but had a master's degree in information technology. Working was hard and rare due to disability. My toenail broke oddly, and I realized that most of that disability was caused by iron deficiency. Then I decided to experiment with my bipolar medication to trigger mania because I was feeling irresponsible. I realized my bipolar medication dose was causing my main cognitive disability. The medication was adjusted slightly, and I have not intentionally triggered mania since. It also turned out that iron deficiency was making me more unstable. I have had one episode in the last 5 years, whereas before 2020, I was having at least 4 per year and at one point over 100. I was finally ready to work, though my back pain was still a factor. I ended up working in retail management with my father for a few years. It was hardly nepotism as we clashed hard in both our vision for the company and how we thought employees should be treated. I left for several reasons, including global warming. This is a positive thing to mention because issues with my boss or my disability are negative to claim to employers. I started an engineering position to try to get my main career back on track, but was fired due to my disability. This was in 2024. I finally realized that engineering was not my future. I started a data science degree, a field where remote work is not only possible but common, and finished in 8 months instead of 12 or more, thanks to my improved cognitive abilities with correct medication and iron levels. After graduating, I found out that retail data science pays very well, with Walmart being the best-paying employer I have seen. I am well qualified for that field now, and I am looking for work. Maybe things have finally turned around. Story 71. At 36, I got laid off from my job of 10 years and moved back in with my parents, ostensibly temporarily. After 6 months out of work, I started taking some community college classes to keep busy. 3 months into those classes, a global pandemic started. I decided to keep my head down and pursue a degree while my unemployment insurance kept getting extended. Fast forward to the year I turned 40. I graduated from college finally, started a new career, moved back out of my parents' place, received some concerning health news after seeing a doctor for the first time in a decade, proceeded to lose 100 pounds over the next 18 months, and now I am about to buy a home. It feels strange to look back and realize I just had a midlife crisis, and this is what being on the other side of it looks like. Story 72. Quit drinking and went back to school and got some certifications on top of my bachelor's degree. Changed careers from then, and I am in a much better place. If you are willing to put in effort and work hard, you can change your life. Story 73. I was laid off from a job I liked and thought I had a future with. The parent company moved the division across the country and did not take people with them. I had some money saved and took some time to decide what I wanted to do. I looked for work a bit and received one offer, but it was not right. I was single and decided to consider moving to a different region of the state that I loved. After not working for a year, I got an entry-level job in the new region. Jobs were pretty scarce at the time. I really started my career all over again. Money was a little tight for a while, but it was well worth it to live in an area I loved. I have been working at the same place for 33 years now. I got married and am close to retirement. Story 74. I changed my career around the age of 30. Now I earn more money and work less. I ended a decade-long relationship and have been exploring dating again in my mid-30s. Being single with more time and money has made me a much more interesting person. I have an enriching social life and make time to nurture my relationships with family and friends. I have also taken up many hobbies, become more fit, and engaged in creative pursuits. I have spent time reflecting on what I needed to work on individually, which has helped me heal much of my anxious attachment and bad habits from childhood. I highly recommend not just drifting through life but making conscious decisions about how you want life to look and feel. Story 75. I moved to another continent, changed careers, got divorced, moved, was furloughed, had a work injury and surgery, had an abortion, had another work injury and surgery, was evicted from an apartment, moved again. My 20s, on the other hand, were mostly fun. I missed them. Story 76. I finally stopped using drugs and married a good man. My life began around age 32. I had struggled due to a difficult childhood, but I mostly forgave my parents through therapy and then turned my focus to myself. I told myself I would be my most important project after years of hiding behind rescuing others and people-pleasing. I am now a writer working on getting published. Story 77. I got married and had a child. I was somewhere between a roguish world traveler playboy and a man-child who lived at home with my parents. Now I am a family man and a successful business owner. My days are spent working and spending time with my family. I rarely drink or smoke anymore, and when I travel, I bring my family. Story 78. A few months after my 30th birthday, I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and subsequently medicated. This cleared the fog in my brain. Suddenly, I was able to work on healing and bettering myself, primarily by unpacking my childhood trauma. I recognized toxic and unhealthy familial patterns I was still clinging to. At age 31, I realized I was still being put in difficult situations by my family and made responsible for the decisions of adults. I also realized my childhood was riddled with abuse. I understood the need to make significant changes to protect my children from experiencing my family's toxicities and generational traumas. I went no contact with my biological father and stepmother, as well as my biological sister. I had been no contact with my biological mother since November 2017. I grieved the familial relationship I wished I had and mourned for my inner child. Then at age 32, it dawned on me that I have built the family of my dreams. My partner is a dream come true, as is my toddler, as is the baby girl I am currently expecting. I will be 33 in August. Taking charge of my healing and my life, and removing negative influences from my familial and friend circles has resulted in the last 2 years being relatively peaceful. I have not been made to feel guilty over my family's or former friends' unending and constant poor life decisions and lack of accountability, all because of a daily 40-milligram pill. Thank you, pharmaceutical companies. Story 79. This past year has been an upheaval. I got laid off at 31 from my first post-college job, and I took that opportunity to make changes. I dropped toxic friendships, established clear boundaries, and repaired my relationship with social media. I did not delete it, but I definitely cut back a lot. I got a new job and set the precedent early on that I would not overachieve unless incentivized. Honestly, I probably needed that layoff to progress as a person, as much as it sucked. Story 80. I hit rock bottom in my personal relationships and became tired of my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I finally sought treatment and started medication. I got a high-paying job in a toxic work environment, but also met my future wife. Eventually, I became a freelancer, living comfortably and always staying on top of everything. Story 81. A therapist told me to go for a walk one day without headphones or anything and just take in nature, which had a profound impact on me. From there, I started going on daily walks, which eventually turned into daily runs. I was 31 at the time and am still a runner to this day. Running has also helped me quit smoking and vaping, 6 years this Halloween, and more recently I have given up drinking, currently 149 days. Running has saved my life. Story 82. I wouldn't say it changed my life, but I had to think long and hard for many years to accept that my vision, passion, and what drives me would not come to fruition. I still want to believe, but at least I have reached the point where I don't try to convince others or speak out my opinion. That has helped me move forward. Now I am beginning to realize that having enough to live and support myself is good enough. Not a happy ending, but it is what it is. Story 83. Mom shot herself when I was 26, and I was the one who found her. I earned a Doctor of Philosophy degree, obtained the aggregation, became a university professor, published a book with Routledge, and learned how to run a 10-kilometer race in under 45 minutes, which was a big achievement for me in the following 15 years. I used my pain as fuel to accomplish things. Not necessarily happier, but at least partially proud of myself. Story 84. I quit drinking and got sober a week after my 30th birthday. I am almost 33 now. Life is simpler, and I have so much more time for activities like running, climbing, and being a better partner and friend. Anxiety completely vanished around the 6-month mark. I used to spend so much time drunk, recovering from drinking, or feeling constantly blue. Don't get me wrong, I have some great memories and wild stories, but around age 26 I started questioning. I had concerns about not reaching my full potential and realized I was using alcohol as a crutch to suppress emotions I didn't want to face. It took me another 4 years to completely quit drinking after a few failed attempts. All regrets and bad decisions can be linked in some way to alcohol and its effects on impulse control. Getting sober lifted a veil and is one of the best decisions I have ever made. I will be hitting 1,000 days sober in a few weeks. Story 85. I went back to school at 28 after realizing my career at the time would never allow me to afford a house or the life I wanted. That started 4 years of being a full-time engineering student while also working full-time. I had a 7-day-a-week schedule outside of school breaks. It was totally worth it, though. Working full-time meant zero debt, and I graduated with a 4.0 grade point average. I got a fantastic job sort of by accident, which has given me a great start to my career. Now I have a house, a good career, although sometimes stressful, and the money to pursue my projects for fun. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.